Hey YouTube, super easy starting out way to learn guitar. Don't know anything about it. Part three. I watched parts one and two. I'm just winging this. There's no plans. I'm basically just talking for 10 minutes and then stopping and starting again, and hopefully not repeating myself too much. Don't know. Anyway, so here playing my Fender Stratocaster. You should know that from the first ones. Not actually a Fender, but still universally, this is a Stratocaster. That is a Telecaster. Um, I don't actually have a Les Paul on the wall, but yeah, just different shapes. Not a massive difference. I know. Again, it's just this whole thing about if you look up on the internet, people will tell you there's a huge difference between a Les Paul and a Strat, and there sort of is in some ways, but in most ways, there's not really. It's like saying there's a huge difference between, like I don't know, like a Ford. I don't know what a Fiat Panda and a BMW. It's like, yeah, I mean they're not really the same, but basically if you want to go to the shops, then you sit in it and you drive it, the same way, and it's the same thing. Also, there's also a price thing in there. The same as this. You can have like a Strat, the cheapest Squires. One of these is £150, and there is no limit to how expensive the actual American Fender ones go. I think you're up over £1,000 anyway for the cheapest American one. It's still 95% the same. All the bits are in the same place. It's just better quality. They'll last longer and they'll sound a little bit better. Not a huge thing, I mean, give Gary Moore or something any one of my guitars, he'll blow me away. It doesn't matter how expensive the guitar I've got. If he's playing one of these, he'll just be, I'm not going to compete. Most of it's in your fingers and what it is you're playing. Above a certain level, you do get a certain level of guitar where it's not really a guitar. You play the notes and they don't work. That kind of thing, or it's really, really difficult to play. Therefore, but once you get to a certain level, which, to be fair, most modern guitars, probably just about any modern guitar, is actually a guitar and can be played. There's some cheaper ones. There's a couple of brands I'm not that keen on. Ones that are very popular on the internet, Harley Benton being one of them, where I don't think they're worth the money because you need to. Yeah, I'll moan about them later on. Just don't believe the internet. Have your own decisions. You're an individual. Just because nobody else likes Black Sabbath doesn't mean they're not amazing. I like Black Sabbath. They're my favourite. Or Baby Metal. Most people absolutely hate Baby Metal. I like them. That's fine. Each to their own. And I suppose to a certain point, each to their own with which kind of guitar it is you buy as well. I mean, I obviously I could have one guitar, or I could have this whole wall, or have one real Fender for the amount of money these all cost me. But there's a lot of fun to be had. I fix them, so it's like I can buy ones that are broken, so I get them cheap, and then I fix them up, and they're all a little bit more interesting. You won't find any of these guitars in a guitar shop because they're all old and slightly odd. So I was going to talk about the tremolo. That's this bit here, which is one of the things that I'm going back to when I started playing the guitar 25 years ago, mid-90s, something like that. That's 30 years ago, late 90s. You want a tremolo arm, because you see Ritchie Blackmore and Hendrix giving it, doing all that stuff. Sort of, yes, but ideally when you're learning, not really. Especially on cheaper guitars. If you know how to work on them, or you know somebody that know how to work on them for free, your pal, you can have a tremolo. The problem is, unless you're all, let's be pretty good on the guitar anyway, you're not going to be able to use it without putting the guitar out of tune. I'll show you how tuning works. So there's a thing called standard tuning. As I mentioned in one of them, there's only 12 notes on any instrument. So it's a case of you can only play, if someone says here's a, guess which note this song's in, then you've got a 1 in 12 chance of getting it right. Might be that one. There's a 1 in 12 chance that that's right. You might be a lower one, but that's the same note. Which you just got to bend your head around this thing that things start repeating. Also, when you're playing on a guitar as well, it's like so. Then once it gets to there, it just repeats. It's the same as. but just higher up. It's still the same notes. That's a hard thing to bend your head around. But basically, so when you put the string through, it comes through, in this case it comes through the back of the guitar, comes over the saddle, you wrap it around this post, which has got a wee thing, and you've got to tune it up to a certain amount. This is called standard tuning, which is basically all I ever use. There's other ways of doing it. Other people do other fancy stuff. So you stick this, this is a clip-on tuner. I'm going to try tune this so that you can see it. I don't know how easy that's going to be. Right, see there? It's saying E. So if I bring that up until it's in the middle, there's E. Then that one's A. See? That's maybe a wee bit sharp. See if I turn it down a wee bit. There you go, perfect A. D. See these. You'll see that this guitar's actually gone out of tune because I was using that tremolo arm. Very difficult to keep it in tune. So basically, if you're starting out, you kind of don't want one that has a tremolo on it. The thing about, see, this is like the original. This is one of the big things the Stratocaster had as an improvement when it first came out, because you didn't really get this sort of thing. This is sitting there on the back. There's springs that tension this whole thing, and this bit's hollow and it's got springs in it, which is when you bend this like this, there's springs in the back. You can just tighten those springs up, and that just means this sits flat on the body of the guitar. You take the bar out and you just don't have a tremolo. So that's kind of what I would recommend if you had a Stratocaster one, because it just puts you out of tune. Or you play your song, you tune it up, you play your song, and when you get to the end, you do that, and then you tune the guitar again before you play the next song. it's the way that kind of works. Right, so I've gone through the main ones. I haven't actually looked at the Les Paul yet, but you get a thing called a Floyd Rose, which is on this guitar here. This would be, you get, again, this is an Ibanez RG. There are cheaper ones, so they've got like a cheap range. I think they start at about 150 quid. This has got this big monstrosity. And what that does is it does the really silly stuff you got in the 80s, because that's when these things were invented for this purpose. So you still got your clean sound. And if you remember the other video, I was going and fidgeting with the top of the amp to turn distortion on. Well, basically what you get are called stomp boxes or pedals, which I've got one on the floor here. Do I have one there? There's one there. So basically what this is the guitar goes in here and comes out here, and then when you stomp on this button, it turns on the effect, whatever effect it is. This one is a sort of overdrive, kind of a bit of distortion type pedal, not plugged in just now. So the one on the floor is it's called a Rat. So you can see it's kind of similar to the sound I was getting with fidgeting with the amp. You can do it fidgeting with the amp. The thing about having it on the floor means that you can play a quiet bit, like so. Oh, nice. Oh, the heavy bit's coming up. You can operate it with your foot, basically, is the main point of having the pedal. You get pedals that do different things, but I like a bit of distortion. So this tremolo, you noticed, you heard the one in the trem. This one, it does really silly things. You can do all that. All that Marty McFly stuff. The one that Marty McFly incidentally is playing at the start of Back to the Future when he's trying out with his band is actually one of them. Very similar to that guitar. But the one at the end, he's playing like a big Gibson thing and he's doing all that stuff. That guitar, they don't really do that, really. That wouldn't be in tune anyway. So this is like a really complicated thing. It's actually very similar to the Strat one, apart from it's got an awful lot more to it, and it's got these clamps up here. So once you've tuned it, You clamp it down, which means that they can't move, and then you've got fine adjustment. Basically, I would avoid at all costs this, which is it's named. It was invented by a guy called Floyd Rose, and you get lots of copies of this, and you can get them in cheap guitars. Not generally. I think Ibanez have actually just done their first sort of cheap guitar that's got one of these in it. The problem with these is it needs to be set up right. You've got to get the springs at the back at the right angle and all this stuff. And most people don't know how to do it, can't work it out. There are YouTube videos, but they're not necessarily telling you the truth. There's a lot of YouTube videos where it's like, how to do a Floyd Rose, and you look at it and then they've got these special machines to do it. And workbenches, and basically at the end it says, if this sounds a bit difficult here, come to my shop and I'll charge you money to do it, sort of thing. It can be done without really, all you need is an Allen key, or the Allen keys that fit it, but it's a bit fidgety, and basically unless you're able to play the guitar, it's not worth having one. It is fun having it, but ultimately I would just go straight for, try and get a hard tail, something that doesn't have a tremolo like a Telecaster. As I said with the Stratocaster, the good thing about that is you can just tighten up the springs in the back and make it sit flat. You can't do that with these because it bends up the way as well. So the thing is, if you put different strings on, thicker strings, they pull this harder, so therefore the bridge's going to go, oh, and it'll be sitting up like that. If you put the lighter strings on, the bridge will be away inside the body, which means the strings will either be really high off the fretboards. It's called action, is the distance between the strings and the fingerboards. If they're too low, they just buzz. If they're too high, it's difficult to play them. Yeah, so I suppose that this would be, you call this a Super Strat. This is obviously my pal painted this, J-Pax painted this, so it was just normally black. It's also I put extra electric bits in. Ultimately still the same thing though, still plays the same chords, you can still play the Beatles on it. But it's like, the thing with these things is, this is not holding tune because it's got new strings on it. So I kind of, if you like this shape, then you can get one like this, but get one with a hard tail. Hard tail being one that doesn't have a tremolo. Tremolos are not recommended. Basically, they're kind of not recommended for anybody, unless you're that way inclined, but not for your first guitar. On the other side, maybe more the... Why am I playing this one? I don't know. Just to show you it's the same thing again. Apart from this is a V, which, let's be honest, looks totally cool, but if you're trying to play it sitting down, you end up having to you put it on your leg like that, and then you have to sit like a Spanish guitar. But they do look cool. I just wouldn't recommend one as your first guitar. Yeah, so yeah, we go. And I'll just gibbering on, talking about guitars, interesting things. Not much going on. Try to think. If there's anything you can think of that I've missed out that's pure obvious, that for all you people who have played the guitar, what did you not know at the start, which seemed really quite silly? As I was saying about that thing with my not realising guitars were made of wood. Who knew it? The other thing I also noticed as well, when you get a tremolo thing, the first thing you want to do is just go wow, because that's, you think that's good. It's not really, but it goes up and down. Sorry, unfocusing again. Focus on that, pull it back. It doesn't. This does not make it go whammy. It's that way, up and down the way. Which there is actually an old SG. There are guitars that do it the other way, but ultimately I wouldn't bother with them. We're talking about the humbucker sound being a little bit more heavy metal-y. So this would be more like that. Yep. And interestingly as well, this is actually the exact same guitar that James Hetfield used. Not for the... I think by the time they got to Enter Sandman they had money, but his one was a Gibson copy as well. His was called an Electra, mine was called this is an Arbiter. But they were both the same guitar made in the same Japanese factory. It's just his was white. but it's exactly the same guitar. And it's like, oh, the first few Metallica albums, yeah, you don't need a $2,000 guitar. Or James Hetfield didn't use a $2,000 guitar to do the first two Metallica albums. He did use one of these. So, you know, there is a bit to be said for, it's like, really, you having a pure amazing guitar does not make you a better guitarist. It's nice to have the really fancy guitars. I mean, they're lovely, but very pretty to look at. Yeah, totally. But there's something really cool about having an old beat up one that's actually quite good. And even when you break down to, you know, that one there, I just made that out of an old joist. So it's like all the things that people will tell you about, oh, you've got to have mahogany and you've got to have maple and, oh, it's got to be Seymour Duncan's, and not to make a guitar work. It doesn't make you better, you know. That one there's just made out of a joist, a bit of wood that was left over from my next door neighbour's garage that I cut into the shape of a Telecaster and put bits on, and it's a guitar and it's really good. A lot of that. And watch this YouTube channel. There, that's your... And just basically enjoy it. Whatever it is, it's your enjoyable thing. I mean, a lot of people don't even play the guitar and have lots. I fix guitars for people who don't even play. And it's like, well, fair enough. I don't see that. Depends what it is you want to do. For me, I wanted to be able to play... My main dream was to be able to just pick up a guitar and just play anything on it. Some people want to be able to play a specific song. That's fine, you can do that. Nothing wrong with it. I like to play some songs. It's good learning to play songs at the start so you know kind of what chords do. So you go, oh, I really like, you know, the way whatever song... I really like the way in Freebird it goes... So I've learnt that bit, so you can apply that to whatever your song is. Maybe, oh, we kind of had a bit that was kind of like that, whatever, and stopped, and then it went into a solo. So you can be playing, you know, anywhere, but just having the knowledge to be able to do that doesn't mean you have to copy it, but it means you know how to do it. So you learn, you know, just same as anything else. You learn by trying other things. I would suggest that when you're starting out, though, try and pick some easy things that you kind of quite like, that you'd like to be able to play. Just learning how to play scales, you'll just... You know, just play that forever until you can play it really fast. Doesn't have the same, for me anyway. When I was learning, I wanted to be able to play things. I was thinking, Wild Thing. I think I love you, yeah. That's only 3 chords, dead easy, but amazing the number of people that can sit there and they can play really complicated things, but it doesn't really sound good. It sounds shite. Whereas if somebody that's the way it's played. It does those 3 chords, so you just play them really well. That sounds better than somebody who can play millions of chords but can't play any of them well. If you can play the 3 well, it sounds better. And that's like your party thing. Who doesn't want to play along with that? No, it's like sitting there going, oh, you've got to try and learn the latest hits or, I'd really say, expensive Led Zeppelin songs. You know, like difficult things to try and show off. You're at a party and you play that. Everyone's joining in because I know that one, that's great, and it's like, and that's a good version you're playing. You can beat everyone because you'll do one verse where everyone's singing, and then if you've actually just learned what the second verse words are, you'll be able to play the whole thing on your own, and everyone will be like, oh, I was really good in the guitar. You're not. You can only play 3 chords, but if you play them well, you're in there. But for me, I just want to be able to pick up the guitar and just go, which I can do. So now I'm trying to do really fancy stuff just because it's great fun. They're sort of... There's something very cool about guitars. All of them, pretty much. Even the ones that aren't cool are still cool. Like when it's like that. It's like it's still cool. It's cool. It does have Wild West Sweethearts on it, with like it says bang with a shit. I mean, it's still cool though, because it's a guitar. Doesn't really matter which one. And try and avoid the snobbery. There's a lot of snobbery with guitars. I'm guilty of a little bit about it myself, not liking certain ones, and there's a taste element to it, but there's a lot of snobbery. It's like, oh, you've got to, especially if you're thinking about, I've mentioned this before in other videos, just And when I first got the internet, I played the guitar for 10 years before that. And I joined one of these guitar groups, and it was showing you, people would pick pictures of a new guitar. Oh, here's my blah 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 Flying V. Guaranteed. This is an amazing guitar. If anyone's ever played one, it's going to go, jeez, there's not a lot of difference between this and a Gibson one. I've played a Gibson. In many ways, it's better, right? But if I posted this, just like, oh, I've just got my new guitar, bang. One of the comments at the start is going to be, oh, you should just have saved up and bought a real one. That guitar's rubbish. I used to have one of them, but it was so terrible that I just gave it away. I smashed it up. You'll get all that. And it's just, it's just, I don't know what. The problem is that, see, of all the guitarists who are all nice, most musicians are a certain type of person. But the ones who are nasty are the ones that comment on things like that. And I really blew it. It really got me. It was like, I think it was a young guy had bought like a Squier Strat starter pack, $150. Oh, looking forward to it. I've always been a big Jimi Hendrix fan. I'm looking forward to it. I bought my first guitar. Oh, it's great. Really looking forward to this. And then the first comment is, Jimi Hendrix played a real American Fender, not a cheap. And you're just like, what? Give Jimi Hendrix that £150 starter pack. He'll sound exactly like Jimi Hendrix, and he'll blow away you. Doesn't matter what kind of guitar it is you're playing. Doesn't matter if yours costs £10,000. Jimi Hendrix on that £150 one will blow you away on your £10,000 one. So it's not a case of trying not to be taken in by being told things. And also a lot of the things, you've got to remember, there's a lot of I'm not going to say unscrupulous people, but people try to sell you things online. When you see reviews of guitars that basically, or channels that basically look the same as mine, but probably a bit more professional, they get sent guitars by, here's three of our new guitars, wink wink. You're going to say they're good though, aren't they? Because if you say these guitars are good, we might maybe give you some money, or you get to keep the guitars. Or so there's a wee bit of that. One of the guitar channels I recommend is Andertons, because although he owns a shop and he's selling guitars, he doesn't push it that way. It's like, I worry about the salesman thing. If you go into a guitar shop, one of the big guitar shops, one of your guitars or something like that, not really knowing what you're talking about, I hope, so I'm thinking of learning to play the guitar, I hope they don't suggest that you're spending £1,000 on a guitar. I hope. I don't know how much a thing in humanity is. If someone says, I'm learning to play the guitar, thinking of starting, I would ask, what kind of music is it you want to play? And it's like, I want to play, Ed Sheeran's my favourite. Well, you're going to buy a wee acoustic guitar, and that's what you want to get you going. Yeah, totally. Whereas it's like, I'm really into Slayer, I just want to play Slayer. There's a guitar. No, it's like, there's a right kind of guitar to play and a wrong kind of guitar. That thing with the bridge, the tremolo bridge on it, or the Floyd Rose. It doesn't matter if the music you like uses that a lot. I kind of wouldn't want to start with that. Even if you are like a big Steve Vai fan, or whoever uses a tremolo arm a lot, it's kind of that's just a bad idea, as opposed to being not to my tastes. If you're going to buy a new guitar, I would suggest looking at a Telecaster shape, because they're difficult to get second hand, so they hold their value better. You get like a Squier Telecaster and a Squier Stratocaster. They're kind of about the same price. But if you look at them second hand, you'll see an awful lot of Squier Stratocasters for under £100. You'll see very few Telecasters, because people tend to keep them. They're also a little bit more grown up, and I think as well they're not as appealing to someone who doesn't play the guitar. The Telecaster, it's a bit boring. I don't know if I really like that very much. But it's a Strat. The Strat's just a sexy beast. They just are that shape. And then obviously you get variations on it later on in the 80s. They started putting more pickups in, making the frets a bit longer, making them more fast. It's like a turbocharged one of these. They still both do kind of the same thing, but yeah. So much for these being 10 minutes long. I don't know if there's been any value in this at all. Basically, just a chat. This is the end. I'd like to do part 4. This is part 3, which the first 2 were like 10 minutes. I'd quite like part 4 to be, if there's anything else that you really feel that should, like my crew, the guys on here, all the people on this page are normally really nice. I don't think there's that much snobbery. I mean, a lot of people, I slag off guitars. I don't like Les Pauls because they're heavy. Doesn't mean they're not cool. It doesn't mean you're wrong for liking them. That's fine. it's probably more the price. I have a thing about guitars that are expensive. Not really being that much better than if you're clever looking about, you can get one that's kind of as good. You know what I mean? Okay, I don't know how much it costs for a Gibson Flying V. Probably over £1,000, and this one here didn't cost a tenth of that, and is 90% the same. That's just the facts of life. You know, if you get a decent one, once you're up at getting a guitar that brand new costs sort of £200 or £300, you should be able to get one that's pretty much as good as. Obviously, oh no, I've got it in the studio. But see if to be honest, see if you've played the guitar for 10 years, playing a cheap one, you would know. Or play it. Buy a cheap guitar, a cheap Squier. Play it for a year until you're, able to play a few chords and you can actually get yourself through a whole song, that sort of thing. Then have a shot of a more expensive guitar, and you'll be able to feel the difference. You'll be able to use the things that it does better, as opposed to if you just start off with a really expensive one. You can't play it anyway, so does it really matter whether? I just think that's a more sensible way. And also, things change. You decide you don't like one type of music, and once you start getting into the guitar, you'll start following things, and you'll start having a favourite guitarist. You'll also start noticing guitar an awful lot more in all the music you listen to. The thing I was even talking to my pal Jen the other day. She'd been playing bass for the last 6 months, kind of just didn't even really know what, called it a bass, didn't really know what a bass was, which is fine. I didn't know what a bass was. That's what Paul McCartney plays, by the way. I didn't know what it was, and once you've played the bass and actually not even played it, played it for a couple of weeks, suddenly you'll be listening to music and you go, oh, there's a bass in there that's really loud. I never noticed. I could hear it, but I didn't know it was the bass. Now I know it's the bass. You go, oh, that's the bass, and that's the guitar. So you end up being able to divide things up a little bit more and actually hear what's playing what. It's a great journey, and it's something you'll never unhear. If you play the guitar, you can hear the guitar better in whatever song it is, because not saying you know exactly how it is they're doing it or what kind of guitar in that, but you can just hear it more because you know what a guitar is. I'm so pleased I let play the guitar. It's cool, and it's not really that expensive either. You know, I mean, to get yourself a good, you're really talking, okay, it can be done for under £100. You'll get a guitar and an amp, but I mean, under £200, you'll get something decent. And if you know something, basically, I would be looking at a Yamaha Pacifica second hand, and I would totally recommend that amp, the Roland Microcube. It's amazing for the size of it. Obviously, you can spend a lot more than that. You can spend thousands of pounds on the guitar, thousands of pounds on the amp, thousands of pounds on the pedals, all these things. But that's all getting you, having a decent guitar and amp gets you to hear, the pros are here, gets you to hear, and the more money you spend, the more it goes up like this. Do you know what I mean? It goes up, another £1,000 that'll make it that much better. And it's like, yeah, but the first jump is no guitar, having a guitar that works. And then you've got, you get a better guitar. Like that. So it's like £300, £1,000, £2,000, £10,000. It's not. Not that I'm saying it's not worth it. If you've got the money and you enjoy looking at it, there is something to be said for enjoying looking at it. I mean, some of these guitars are maybe a little bit uninteresting, maybe don't inspire you to play. So that's the difference. If you've got a guitar that you don't like the look of, I mean, my first guitar was a Strat copy, which didn't work, and my second one was very much like that. And I was playing Beatles and stuff like that, learning to play the guitar, playing the music I like, the sort of 70s stuff. And I just hated the guitar. Nothing to do, just because of the look of it. It looked like, I should be Steve Vai, I should be just blah, 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 That's not what I was trying to do. So it didn't feel right. So when I got my Epiphone SG, which wasn't as good a guitar as the one that looked like that, was I sold. The Yamaha that had a look like that, it was a better guitar. It had that stupid bridge on it, so that's why I'm going from experience. When I got that SG, it was my first real guitar because I loved it. Still got it. I was going to look it out, but the strings on it will be minging. So there you go, half an hour to end this. I don't know if there's any point in even just talking about this nonsense, but there you go. Hopefully it'll be of use to somebody. And it's like, if you want to follow this channel, don't feel snobby about not knowing anything. Just ask. It's like, fine. You're better asking than just assuming something and being a fool, which just happens a lot on internet. You'll see it a lot. The people who comment and things, because when I can fix guitars, but I don't go on the internet to look at and tell people how to fix guitars, whereas a lot of people do. It's like, I've been looking up on the internet for the last 6 months how to do this, so here's how you do it. And it's like, no, it isn't. Yes, it is. You know, they've got supreme confidence in what they say. You know, it's like, Gibson Flying V is so much better than this, you know, this old Japanese copy. It's so much better. It's just so much better. All right. Have you played a Gibson Flying V? No, I've not played one, but they're so much better. Have you played one of these? No, I've not played one of them either, but it's so much better. And you're like, so maybe, you know, take advice from people who actually know what it is they've got. Or especially with someone like me, I've had every type of guitar pretty much within reason. You know, you can argue, you've not had a 1950s Fender. No, I haven't had a 1950s Fender. I've got 70s Fender. You know, yeah. But, you know, just like I've tried all these things. I also don't have an agenda. I'm not trying to sell you something. Yeah, so rock on. And if you're new to the channel, thank you. And I'll do... Anyone get any idea for videos? I just wanted to... I've been thinking about this the last... I tried to do these videos yesterday, and I wasn't very happy with what I was doing. I don't know if I'm really happy with this, but I think the problem is if I go back and look at it, I'll decide I missed out lots of stuff, so I've just got to put it out and just got to assume that you've been watching me now for like probably an hour, so you'll understand that I do talk a little bit fast. But I am speaking English. I'm quite posh and quite clever. I've got hires. I've got a degree. Yeah. Lots of use that turned out to be. But sometimes guitars just look cool. And sometimes you just want to have them. A lot of people don't like Flying Vs. I don't understand how you could not like Flying V. I totally understand how you maybe don't like the feel of it. It feels horrible. But how can you not think that looks cool? And how... 1958 they designed this. It's shocking. I should have stopped this video about 20 minutes ago and continued on to the next part, but it's all the guitars, everything you get with guitars, all the desirable stuff was made in the 50s, alright? This guitar is a 50s, your Telecaster, Stratocaster, Les Paul 335, SG60s, but it's all 50s technology, and ultimately it's still, this guitar here, which you can, if you go into a guitar shop, it will 100% definitely have, I don't think there won't be a guitar shop anywhere that doesn't have a Stratocaster in it. And it's pretty much exactly the same as it was when it came out in 1954. What they did, one of the things is they made this switch, instead of being a 3-way, they made it a 5-way. This one's an old one, so it's still got the 3-way. They made it a 5-way so you could wedge, so the switch wedges between. So instead of just getting this pickup or this pickup, when you've got the switch wedged between the two, you get both at the same time, which gives you another sound. That, and that's the difference between a modern, what you now buy as a Stratocaster, and the one that came out in 54. There's nothing else has changed. You still plug it into the guitar with a lead. You can get a wireless thing now, but you can still use a lead. Folks still use a leads. And even the amplifiers haven't changed that much. The desirable amplifiers are all valves, which is old technology. Like this orange one is all valves, and it's like, you know, it's basically the same thing. There is a little bit of technology has come in with your effects pedals, where you got, and even this wee Roland amp, you know, it's back in the 50s. You didn't get an amp like this. This has got some effects on it. It's got reverb and all this stuff, and it's got like a dial on it that you can choose what kind of amp you want to make it sound like. You can make it sound like a jazz chorus, or you can make it sound like a Marshall, because it's got like digital stuff in it. So there's technology in that, but there's like modern technology. I mean, when I say modern, I think this is probably 20 years old, but even then, still counts as being modern. Very, very little has happened in guitars since the 50s. Even when you come to look at, you know, looking at this being, you know, this is, you probably still call this a modern guitar. This came out in 1987. And what's different between this and a Stratocaster? They made the neck a little bit longer. It's still the same, but it just goes a wee bit higher. So they've moved the pickup so you can get higher notes. It goes up to 24. The neck's a little bit thinner, a good bit thinner, and then it's got this Floyd Rose thing that's got humbuckers in it, and it's a little bit pointy looking. But it's still basically still a Stratocaster, and kind of all guitars are that. Occasionally you get ones that don't stand about. You get ones that are made of fiberglass and all that, but ultimately it's still the same thing. It's still the same guitar. It's like there was a great meme used to see on Facebook, and it was like, it showed you like a telephone, a car, and a computer, and a Stratocaster, and it's got like in the 50s it showed you like a 50s phone, car, and computer, and then in the 60s it showed you and in the 70s and the 80s and the 90s and the noughties and all. You obviously you can imagine what a phone's done from what it used to look like in the 50s, or a computer, and the Stratocaster's. It's like, oh no, it's a different colour. They're now painting it, and you're like, it's still exactly the same thing. 99% identical. And see, this is the 1958 guitar. I mean, what's the difference between this and the 1958 one? Not a lot. Fundamentally, maybe a bit more made by machine rather than made by hand, but still, guitarists are a weird bunch. And even the most modern guitars, I get some of these guitars quite cheap. Ones like that red one there, and you're quite cheap because it looks very 1980s. I mean, ultimately, sound-wise, it sounds the same as a Strat, but because this is your 50s or 60s looky thing, it'll never really go out of fashion. Again, it's not going to look quite right if you're playing in a black death metal band with that, but I meant black metal, not black people playing death metal. That's fine. There is no racism in guitars, I don't think. Yeah, so basically guitars are awesome, and I'll probably just put all these out as a video on Saturday, just as a big spiel of nonsense, and then I'll get back to actually doing some work and doing other interesting obscure guitars, because I like interesting obscure guitars.